begin. Just to reiterate, my name is Candice Honaker. I am the Senior Communications Specialist for Austin Transit Partnership. ATP is the local government corporation tasked with implementing Project Connect and building light rail for Austin. So right now we're going to continue the theme of partnership, and we're going to talk about how ATP is partnering with industry to bring light rail to Austin. But before we dive in, I'm going to let our fearless leaders from Austin Transit Partnership introduce themselves and tell you more about their role on the project. Starting with Jen.
Good afternoon. My name is Jennifer Pine with ATP. I'm Executive Vice President there over planning and environmental, the project controls, and also federal programs, including FTA coordination.
I'm Casey Burack. I'm EVP of Business and Legal Affairs, so former General Counsel and now over legal and procurement, real estate, government affairs, and HR stuff.
And I'm Lindsay Wood, Executive Vice President of Engineering and Construction, and really excited to work alongside this incredibly talented team to bring light rail to my hometown.
Great. Thank you so much. And I touched on this a little bit, Casey, but how did ATP come to be, and how is it unique in its structure?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for the question. I like this one. As the first employee, technically. So ATP is an interesting organization, Austin Transit Partnership. We've been around for a little over 3 years, so we're a relatively new organization. We're kind of, if you read the think tank reports about how to deliver projects, we're a special purpose delivery vehicle, I would say. And we were developed for a number of reasons, but primarily, I think, for political and financial reasons. And now I would say for delivery reasons we exist, and I'm glad we have this model that we're solely focused on delivering light rail for Austin, the first project here. So back in 2020, when there had been a couple of failed elections and folks had developed the vision for Project Connect, there was a lot of interest in the community and the voting community before it was up for election in November of that year, for there to be an entity that was really laser focused on this, that it would have a governing body, a board that was separate from the city council, separate from Capital Metro, separate from the other existing transportation organizations in our region, that would be the sole purpose of which would be to deliver light rail, but as part of Project Connect and oversee Project Connect and the expenditure of that local tax dollars that were up on the ballot in November. And also part of what we are able to do is to leverage the local dollars that come in and build a bond program around that helps us fund the project, particularly in the construction years. But just so we have different ways to leverage that funding. So we had a record turnout in Austin's history in November 2020, and almost 60% of the folks that turned out for that election voted in favor of Prop A to increase their property taxes and dedicate that funding directly to an independent board that later became over Austin Transit Partnership. So we're not unique in that there's organizations like Sound Transit that's funded by a sales tax. There's Crossrail in the UK that, there are entities like this that have been established. We have a little bit of different funding mechanism, but I think overall we are an emerging best practice in delivery, and so it's an exciting organization to be a part of.
Right. Thanks. Jen, did you have anything?
I can add to that a little bit too. As you mentioned, like the 2020 vote funded the Project Connect system plan, which is a program of transit improvements. And so there are a number of different investments that are included in that. And Cap Metro is responsible for implementing the Metro Rapid projects, for example. McCalla Station that just opened recently, partially funded from the same source. But ATP, while our board has oversight of funds associated with the program, our organization is focused on delivering the light rail system. So we'll be issuing the design and construction contracts, for instance. And I think another really unique and interesting aspect of ATP is our composition, because this organization has brought together a team really principally to deliver light rail. And so it's a very interesting and talented mix of folks from Austin who really understand this community and what's needed and desired. but also folks who have worked on light rail transit projects and systems throughout the country. So we have a really interesting blend of experience to bring to the table.
So for those that are not familiar with light rail, Jen, can you tell us more about Austin Light Rail and where we're at in that process of delivering the project?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so light rail, I'm sure most of you are familiar. This will be operating in the public streets. It's about 10 miles, the initial project that we will be advancing, in about 15 stations. And since the vote back in 2020 that confirmed the funding available for this project, we've really been advancing the engineering and the studies to continue to understand and define the project. So last June was a big moment for us. At that time, the Austin City Council, the ATP Board, and the CAT Metro Board approved the light rail implementation plan. That includes a first phase, that about 10 miles or so, and we've been continuing to advance that ever since. Our big topic, probably for the next 18 months or so, is we're doing the work needed to comply with the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA. We are pursuing federal grant funding for this project, probably about 50% of the capital costs under the New Starts program administered by FTA. So the NEPA process is just one of those requirements that we are pursuing. We just finished a series of public meetings, and we'll be continuing to advance the engineering and analysis work for really the remainder of the year.
And part of that work of advancing the design is really defining the requirements of the project and what its footprint is, and understanding the key elements that are going to be needed around not only the transit infrastructure, but also how the light rail fits into the overall transit network. How will people get to the light rail stations? Where should those stations be? What utilities might we need to relocate as part of the project? And working through all of that to support the environmental analysis of the project. But we are in those early design stages, and then once the environmental review is complete, we'll move on to the next exciting phase of final design and construction.
So the meat and the heart of what we're here to talk about is those partnerships. And so how are we at ATP planning to deliver the project in terms of those partnerships with industry?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, in telling the story of ATP and that we are singularly focused on this, the culture of who we are is also embedded in what we build, which is got to be reflected in the community's vision for not only ATP, but obviously the light rail program. So we kind of bring that to the table in all of the decisions we're making around how to structure our delivery. We are looking at more of a collaborative model that's just kind of imbued in our community in Austin and also in our organization, and also kind of what we've heard from industry is really the trend. So we're looking at that, and kind of the first steps of that are making sure that we've got our right industry delivery partner or kind of program management, construction management partner from industry, but I'll let these ladies tell more details.
I think understanding the market is a big part of what we're looking at. The market has changed over time. Design, bid, build, and traditional delivery methods aren't working anymore for big, complex projects. And neither is design build. The contractors won't even come to the table to do fixed price bidding on billion-dollar-plus projects with a lot of complexity, lots of utilities, lots of third-party agreements, all built in a dense urban environment. There's just too much risk. And so we have to understand that market and what will help us bring the capacity and talent needed to deliver this project, and learning from those lessons all across the country. Learning from industry, learning from our peers and other agencies that have implemented these projects, and understanding what led to costs and schedule not being under control. And kind of getting away from some of the traditional thinking of you have the most control if you as the owner own the design and own every aspect of it. But what really happens with that is your engineer's estimate in no way matches your contractor's estimate. And so matching the strengths of the industry to our needs here on the project. And that's really brought us to this collaborative delivery model to make sure that we're understanding each party's role in the process and matching that role to the strength of that party. Contractors understand cost better than engineers do. They just do. I'm an engineer. We're not the best at estimating cost. We're not the best at phasing and sequencing the job and thinking about how we can build this most effectively and efficiently. And so we want those partners there that bring those strengths in the really early phases of the project as we're doing earlier stages of design, not taking the design all the way to the end and then saying here. So that's been a key part of planning with industry and getting that feedback so that ultimately we have teams and partners with us that have proven experience and are solutions focused, bringing us ideas, and are fully integrated with us to share an understanding and a commitment to what we want and need to achieve here.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you. So it sounds like ATP is working toward those best practices in terms of collaboration. So how have you been bringing industry along and to the table to help them understand ATP's unique needs?
So I've really loved tackling this as part of my job. I've spent far more time on the private sector than I have in the public sector. And it's been this amazing opportunity to think through all those things that used to annoy me on the other side of the table. All those things, I was like, why are you doing that? So being able to ask those questions that ultimately lead us to having the best talent to deliver this. We're building industry engagement very intentionally into our process, but I'll admit we're doing that fairly selfishly. It's not just to be nice, it's because we want the best outcome. We want the best project and we want the best people. And we want the A team from our partners to be there with us. And so some of the things that we've done in order to engage industry, we started early in our planning with an RFI process where we essentially posed a series of questions, things we were mulling over ourselves, things that were challenging us, and posed those questions to industry to get feedback and help inform our planning. We've had many one-on-one conversations to really have candid discussions around not only those topics, but others as well. And then one of the things that I think I'm most excited about how we're moving forward with industry truly as a partner is the idea of publishing our draft solicitations 2 or 3 months on our major contracts before we actually issue any RFQs. And putting out really what we're thinking and being really transparent about that, and also being really open to feedback and genuinely open. We're not going to be offended if someone says, I don't know if that's a good idea. And having those drafts out there for our potential industry partners to comment on, anything from terms and conditions to clarity around the services that we're going to be asking for, to our evaluation process itself. And we're already seeing really positive results from doing that. We have done it on a couple of recent procurements. We're actually in the middle of it still for our on-call engineering and planning contracts. And what we saw result from that process was a lot of participation and feedback and input received in the RFI, but more importantly, it brought a lot of great competition to actually propose. Really good expertise came into these teams, and it reflects that we're communicating what we want, because we're seeing in the teams that are proposing an understanding and a thoughtful approach and great expertise. And
And I would say, and hopefully industry is seeing that when we send the actual RFQ out, that it reflects what you guys are telling us as well.
Yes.
And I would say in the next round, which we'll get to, but we're trying to push the envelope, reflect what we've heard, and we do want those candid responses. I think that was a good point that Lindsay made.
And sometimes it doesn't reflect what we hear, but that's intentional too.
Yeah.
You know, there's.
But we're listening.
Yes, we are listening. There is an aspect of, there's always a lot of different perspectives and interests that may be driving those perspectives, and we always have to keep our end goal in mind. And we continue, we're excited to continue that practice and have right around the corner here another opportunity for our delivery partner, where we will be publishing that draft RFQ as well. And Jen, maybe if you want to talk a little bit more about that kind of delivery partner and what we're thinking there.
Thank you. Yes. So our next solicitation that will be coming out, and we will be issuing it in draft form, in a month or so. We're calling it a delivery partner solicitation. And we chose that terminology quite specifically because we would like to absolutely be in partnership mode with the firms that come to deliver this project together with us. So that work, it is similar to a program manager, construction management, but plus. We are really looking for that team to fully integrate with what we're doing and support our work in the community, our work on the construction site, our work in project controls, and with the FTA as we advance through all the phases of the project that are coming up.
And I think we're having a conversation on this topic this morning and realized that the plus, I think, means different things to each of us, which is kind of fun and maybe a fun exercise to go through. We are thinking that it's more than just staff augmentation. It's a full expansion of our team and helping us to manage really all aspects of the program, including other people's work and those third-party elements and all of the different contracts that will come into the program overall to build Austin Light Rail. We've got not only the light rail transit way, but a maintenance facility and vehicles and integrating the systems across all of those elements. And to me, the plus is that they're thinking about how every single individual piece fits together and have a sense of ownership and shared commitment to making sure all of those pieces come together and not ever pointing the finger of, well, that's a separate thing. We want a partner that thinks about the finish line.
Yeah, it's a good point. Obviously, as the public sector owner, we ultimately have the responsibility for delivering this project for, that was in the ballot in Prop A, but as much as we can partner with the private sector such that they feel that sense of ownership as well, we're going to try to structure the solicitation and the terms and conditions and the performance objectives around that goal. So we will welcome your feedback on our attempt to do so.
So the great thing about having a team that works together all the time is that you are all in sync with with the flow of the conversation. So is there anything else that you want to highlight that's up next for ATP? You all kind of touched briefly on it, but anything else to add to that?
Well, on the contracting side, we mentioned the delivery partner role is really the next big thing. It's a long-term contract, really over the life of the project until we're and preparing for ribbon cutting and operations start. It was great to see our friends and partners at Cap Metro up here right before us and working closely with them as well to get ready for what really matters is that riders want to use this system and will love it. And ideally, I guess what I define as success, will want more of the system. If we only ever build a phase one, we kind of failed. Our goal is that we're going to expand this and reach as many and serve as many from our community as possible. And the delivery partner being our next big step and advancing toward that goal. We also continue to advance all of the various work streams of keeping the project moving forward and working toward that implementation of always advancing design. And Jen, maybe the federal process has been so critical to our success.
Especially in the next few years. We are in the NEPA process, so a few of the upcoming milestones. We're anticipating delivering a draft EIS before the end of the year for public comment and review, and then issuing a final EIS and concluding the NEPA process in 2025. But in the meantime, though, as you can see, we're planning for project delivery. We're planning for the long haul, and making sure that we have the right resources in place at the right time when we've completed NEPA and we're kind of moving further into design and engineering and looking at how we're going to construct the project. I would add too, just on the funding side, obviously is a big part of our plan for how we're going to fund the capital costs of the project. So we're actively working with FTA, and that will continue over the years, of course. We are looking to enter the project development phase of the New Starts program, before the end of spring, and continuing to work with FTA on all that's required to ensure that we have a grant agreement in place when we need it.
Yeah, I think overall, on the funding picture as well, I'm sure you guys, if you've been following the program, you saw that in the last board meeting, we've gotten ourselves set up and authorized in order to issue debt, which is that critical funding piece. There's the local dollars came in with the election, the federal dollars, which we're applying for, which is an important and arduous process, and then, of course, the ability to locally leverage those dollars that'll help us as part of our federal match. So we're setting up that program now. We've got a board authority to issue debt, so we plan to do that this year. Got a legislative session coming up that always makes our lives interesting in Austin, especially after the last election. But I think we are poised. The message is we are hitting every milestone we publicly state we're going to hit. We've got a project. We're moving forward in all of these work streams, and we're going to build light rail in Austin. So, yeah.
And with that,
Yeah, go for it.
that's right.
You can applaud that. So.
Thank you all for your work on this project. This is a transformational project for Austin, and we're really excited. Thank you all for your time.